He threw a handful of coins at the feet of the royal guard, convinced that his money gave him the right to humiliate a protector of honor. But the guard's reaction was so swift and unexpected that it left the entire crowd breathless. No one could believe how this brazen show would unfold or the shocking consequences it would bring. But let's take it from the beginning. A foggy London morning once again enveloped the royal palace in grey clouds and drizzling rain, as if trying to conceal the hustle and bustle that begins here at the crack of dawn. A crowd of tourists, some in colorful raincoats, others in flip-flops or burdened with oversized backpacks, relentlessly clicks their cameras. At first, the constant click-click seems like mere background noise, but it gradually becomes grating. Many who leave comments often point out that these endless photo sessions somehow cheapen the majestic atmosphere of the palace. At the center of this chaos, standing like a steadfast anchor in stormy waters, is guard James Harrington. His posture is impeccably straight, his gaze fixed directly ahead. He wears the iconic bearskin hat, Busby, which some see as a selfie prop, while others revere it as a sacred symbol of British military tradition. James has long grown used to the bewildered remarks like, "Does this guy have a steel neck or what?" Or the jibes, "Hey mate, crack a smile for once." But every such comment is a small sting to someone who has dreamed of serving the crown since childhood. "People come here as if it's an amusement park, forgetting this is living history," many lament in comments. Amid the usual bursts of camera flashes, a man appears, wearing a garish lime green t-shirt emblazoned with the bold phrase, "I'm the king of the world." In his hand, he clutches a ridiculous inflatable camera, likely purchased from a nearby souvenir shop, either as a joke or for another epic video. Judging by the puzzled looks from the crowd, it's clear this tourist considers himself the center of the universe. "I'm paying a ton of money, so why isn't this stuck-up soldier entertaining me?" he mutters under his breath, glancing disdainfully at the unmoving guard. His tone is filled with contempt for any tradition that he deems boring or utterly useless. Some in the crowd chuckle approvingly, while others frown openly, recalling countless comments condemning the audacity of such kings of the world. People like him see the guards as little more than decorations, walking costumes meant to cater to their whims. But James remains unyielding, giving no reaction, not even a glance. A voice from the sidelines murmurs, "If I were him, I'd have shown that tourist the door a long time ago." Yet the guard stays silent, trained to suppress any emotional response. Meanwhile, the king of the world grows increasingly emboldened. He grips his inflatable camera as if preparing to film a groundbreaking video and smugly remarks, "Hey buddy, tell the queen not to let her corgis get too full of themselves." A few in the crowd stifle laughter, but most look on in disgust. Even the least informed among them understand that such antics are a blatant display of disrespect. For now, the situation still seems like harmless farce, but the tension in the air is palpable. Anyone remotely aware of the historical significance of the royal guard feels a gnawing sense of unease. No one yet realizes that this self-proclaimed king of the world is about to push the situation to its limit, forcing James Harrington to demonstrate not just his resilience, but his readiness to respond with uncompromising force. It all began with an exaggerated sigh from the self-proclaimed king of the world, a tourist in a neon t-shirt clutching an inflatable camera. He loudly inhaled as if gasping for air, then theatrically scattered a handful of coins at the feet of James, who stood stoically guarding the royal palace. "Well, pick it up, soldier boy. I paid, now give me a little show," he shouted in a mocking accent, treating this iconic symbol of British culture like a ridiculous internet parody. The crowd instantly buzzed with excitement. Some chuckled, others looked away awkwardly, but many were already pulling out their phones, eager to capture a viral moment. Meanwhile, more conscientious spectators watched with growing outrage. How can someone be so disrespectful? People often wrote in comments about incidents like these. "This is a symbol of the Queen and all of Britain." Emboldened by the attention, the brazen tourist edged closer, almost crossing the forbidden white line. James seemed to grip his rifle just a little tighter, but he didn't move. Protocol dictated no reaction unless there was a direct threat. Still, the tension thickened like the air before a storm. Then, the king of the world went all in. He reached for the guard's bearskin hat as if intending to grab it. A hushed gasp rippled through the crowd. Even those who had been smiling moments before now realized the tourist had crossed a line. Such behavior, once met with severe consequences, was now shamelessly recorded on phones, oblivious to how deeply offensive it was. "What utter disrespect," muttered an elderly British gentleman nearby, gripping his cane so tightly his knuckles turned white. In the old days, they wouldn't have let someone like that get anywhere near this place. Yet the tourist, basking in the attention, only smirked, further encouraged by the cameras and murmurs. In his mind, paying for a trip gave him the right to do anything. When a guard becomes just another prop for self-absorbed tourists, commentators often lamented, reflecting the bitter injustice of such situations. James remained motionless, like a statue, but his steely gaze hinted at a breaking point. A moment longer, and he would prove that the guard's silence was not submission. The crowd, still uncertain of what would happen next, could sense that the tourist's final move, reaching for the sacred symbol of British honor, had already disrupted the usual order. What followed would redefine how this scene would be remembered. At first glance, the situation seemed on the brink of open conflict. The king of the world had almost crossed every line, and the crowd watched tensely. But just as it seemed the guard would either endure or snap, everything changed. From the opposite side of the gathering came the loud cry of a child. A little girl had slipped on the wet pavement and painfully struck a stone ledge. Her parents, frantically pushing through the crowd, tried to reach her, but the scattered spectators seemed slow to grasp what was happening. And then James, defying military protocol, broke from his post. As outraged commenters later noted, a guard is not allowed to abandon his position without a serious reason. But for James, the safety of a child outweighed the rules. Without hesitation, he rushed to the girl, carefully checking for injuries before gently helping her to her feet. The crowd, which moments earlier had been craving a show, suddenly fell silent, realizing that beneath the familiar stoic exterior lay a man with a big heart. Some spectators, particularly those who had previously lamented the inhuman conditions of the guards, now gazed at James with newfound respect. "Are you okay, little one?" James asked calmly, throwing a brief but stern glance at the stunned tourist. The king of the world clearly hadn't expected his silent mannequin to show such genuine care. In the next few moments, an extraordinary unity spread across the square. People burst into applause, and some even teared up with emotion. Internet forums were later flooded with comments like, "Finally, proof that the guards are not just decorations, but real selfless people." But the applause did not sit well with the king of the world. He wanted to interrupt the scene and reclaim the spotlight. The mere fact that someone else was more important than him drove him into a furious rage. The tourist cursed loudly, shoved a few people aside, and breaking through the crowd, suddenly leapt at James as if trying to knock him down. "He's a person, not a clown for your entertainment!" Someone in the outraged crowd shouted, echoing the sentiments of online viewers who later wrote, "How reckless do you have to be to attack a royal guard?" Just seconds earlier, the crowd had witnessed James's noble act, and now they were watching a brazen attempt to humiliate him by any means. It seemed the situation had completely spiraled out of control, and no one could predict how this reckless attack would end. The situation unfolds rapidly. The enraged king of the world, blind to the potential consequences, charges at the guard in a fit of fury. But James, already prepared for such an escalation, reacts decisively and with composed precision. Without unnecessary movement, he sidesteps the incoming tourist, shifts his weight strategically, and blocks the aggressor with his body, as though a trained fighter. The result is devastating for the king of the world. He clumsily loses his balance and lands face first in a nearby puddle. Dirty water splashes grotesquely, a fitting end to his pathetic stunt, as the approving roar of the crowd fills the square. "Well, here's your show," James mutters under his breath, his voice tinged with dry sarcasm. There's a palpable sense of regret in his tone, not for his actions, but for the fact that someone would stoop so low to publicly humiliate a guard and desecrate Britain's sacred traditions. "It's high time someone put these entitled tourists in their place," many commenters later wrote, outraged by the blatant disrespect toward the honor of the guard. Now, their indignation finds its long-awaited validation. The tourist has been punished, spectacularly and largely by his own folly. Palace officers and tourist police rush to the scene without delay. They unceremoniously lift the king of the world, now filthy, tearful, and stripped of whatever dignity he had left, and escort him off the palace grounds. The crowd erupts in applause and jeering remarks. Even those who had initially recorded the incident for entertainment now openly condemn the man's behavior. "You're a disgrace to your country," hisses one elder spectator standing near the officers. "That's what happens when you try to destroy something preserved for centuries," another voice chimes in, echoing the crowd's mood. James, unmoved by the spectacle, calmly adjusts his bearskin hat and returns to his post, expecting neither applause nor thanks. For him, this was merely duty, a genuine act in service of the crown and the historical legacy he is devoted to. The crowd parts respectfully as he resumes his station. The little girl he rescued earlier waves her tiny hand at him, her eyes filled with pure admiration. That same admiration resonates in online comments, where people write about the renewal of faith in nobility and integrity. "Traditions live as long as there are those willing to defend them," reads one of the most popular remarks. And indeed, as London's grey clouds begin to break apart, it becomes clear. The greatness of the Guard is stronger than any trend of cheap entertainment. Those who test its resilience will not only meet a firm response, but also walk away with a lifelong lesson. In the end, honor is no empty word. It is the very reason James Harrington stands at his post every morning, remaining true to himself and his country, no matter the challenges.